You need the book too, right?
Yes, this is AP, and we're looking at our workbooks. Sure. When I was a ninth grader, it used to be called ACOC, junior high school. I had a algebra teacher named Mr. Ergel, and I'll never forget Mr. Ergel. Well, he'd give us the test. We had one guy in there that finished it like in 10 minutes. He's the smartest person I've ever known. The rest of us took an hour to do it. But Mr. Ergel would sit on a completely empty desk. There are no books on there, and there's nothing but one sheet and a pencil. And he looked like he enjoyed taking his own test. You know, he was making out the keys. So he'd sit there and he'd do it, and he was finished. And I think it took David 10 minutes, and it took him about 15. But I've come to realize I've become Mr. Ergel because I like doing some of the things I assign you to do, like the poem we did on Friday. I want to look at that, and there are actually answers in the book, so I'm going to point out where that is, and we won't have time to do another one today, but keep bringing the book with you. We'll have a quiz tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, we'll talk about the House of the Seven Gables. And eventually there'll be quizzes. You need to prepare for a quiz. I may not give you one. I'm giving you one tomorrow that I got a grade, and then if I give you one Wednesday, which I need to do, so be prepared to do it. Don't be surprised if you have one. Don't be surprised if you don't have one. I just need for you to read it. If you read it, and I knew that for sure, I'd never give you a quiz. That's just work I don't have to spend time doing, but be prepared for one on Wednesday when you come in here. All right, so let's look at those words at the back. They start, I just want to make sure, I can't even pronounce it. Bildung, Roman. I know Roman is novel. And so take a look at that. It's a German word. Just look over them, because some of them have examples like last time. They're pretty easy. Most of you made 98s, 97s. You might have missed something. Like alliteration is supposed to be the initial. I took a point out, just 1 point. The initial consonant sound. That's important. There's another word for a consonant sound. So that's called consonants. But if it's the initial sound, like Sally sells seashells, that's alliteration. So it's just little things like that. I mean, again, most of you made really, really good grades on that, and you should do the same here. It's one way we can prepare for this test. It's not ideal, but it's one we can just keep doing this throughout the year, try to learn these. So that word, the German word, blank verse, bombast, burlesque, cacophony. These are actually words that you might use or see. Caesura, canon, caricature, carpe diem, catharsis, class. Most of them don't seem to have examples. Classic, classical, climax do have some examples there. Coming of age story, conceit. Notice, don't think you know what that means. It has nothing to do in this sense with bragging or pride. So don't give me that definition for conceit. It's a literary term. Connotation, consonants, couplet, denotation, denouement. Actually, those are very practical ones. So down to denouement, same format as last time. Put in the work. It's not hard, but maybe it'll help. Any questions about that? All right, would you turn to the poem that we did? I just want to, I know we really kind of looked at it on Friday, but this is the poem, A Poison Tree, and I just want to point out, I did it, but I also looked at the back of, behind it, there are actually answers, and the answers help me. I don't see everything they see, and they didn't see everything I saw. So this started on page 86. Of course. Dan, would you mind? You're going to get sick of me asking you, but you're not getting that door. I think we went over most of it, didn't we? Did we go over all of it? Okay, well, let's just review quickly. We won't reread it. Why don't you start first, Yao? Who is speaking? in the,
So like the speaker would be like the boy that's angry with his friend, that's his foe.
yes, and I just want to point out where these answers are. If you'll turn a couple of pages ahead, if you ever want to look at this, it's on page 92, and they do have the author listed there. So anyway, the answers for these are back there. I don't want you to look at them while you're practicing, but you can look at them afterwards. All right, so to whom is he speaking? Caroline.
It's not really clear, it's pretty ambiguous. It could be the audience or a friend.
It could be that friend, but what's not ever ambiguous would be the reader. So the reader is always the audience, but the question, you have to ask it because sometimes it may be more than the reader. We're always reading it, so we're always the first audience that the author had in mind. What's the context of the poem, Kieran?
I said, like his feeling, like about his foe.
Just, I'm sorry, a little bit louder so I can hear you.
Talks about his feelings about his foe. And,
So we know he's an angry guy, and what does he actually, we can tie this into number 4. What does he actually do, Layla?
He like poisons an apple and then his foe eats it.
It certainly talks like that, but is that literal or is that figurative? What do you think he really does? Does he really have a garden? He talks about a garden. Does he really water it? Does it really kill his foe? Is that literally what's happening, or that is literally what's happening, but what is the figurative meaning? What is the meaning behind that? You have an idea?
It's like, his garden is like a mental picture of like just his wrath, so like, he's like watering this poisonous tree, so like, that's his grudge that's holding against his foe.
So when he waters it, he's actually, what is he doing?
He's like thinking about it more, like he's holding this grudge, and it's like just growing stronger and stronger.
Good. We know how that works. And so he continues, this thing continues to grow. I guess we're also talking about 5, but we're still in 4. So what ultimately happens? It looks like, can someone explain maybe what actually happens at the end of the poem? It's probably not talking about a real garden, although in the poem there's a real garden there. What happens? Anybody want to explain what happens at the end of the poem? How about Noah? What happens at the end of the poem?
maybe
Give him what Yal said. You know, he's really just holding this grudge and nursing it. How we like to think about it. So what actually happens at the end of the poem?
it's maybe him reflecting on what he did and how he killed his friend.
Okay, does he really kill his friend? You think he really does? He could have, I guess.
Yes, I think he does.
I wonder how he did it. Did he really use a poison apple? Seems a little bit dramatic. If he did. All right, well, something happens to his friend. Anybody want to suggest what that might be? John?
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think the end of the poem is just him reflecting on how he could, like, just him, well, the end, just like, just him thinking about him being delighted on what could possibly happen, about his, like, him eating the apple.
Well, we want to figure out what happened. Did he really poison? Okay, let's say that's a possibility. He really put a poison apple in a garden. That sounds a little far-fetched to me. But what do you think he really did? Something died. If he didn't actually kill his friend or his foe, what did he kill? Yeah, Jonathan.
Well, I think he kind of, like, if they had a relationship, he, like, destroyed their relationship.
There you go. To me, that's a simpler answer to it, because I know if it's just about some Snow White fairy tale where somebody gives a poison apple to somebody, I'm not so interested, but now I'm interested. And what do you think did it, Will? If there's no real poison apple, what could the poison apple represent?
Well, when he's talking about like the tree that grew over him, it was like, he didn't make peace with him, so it was like,
Right.
I guess it was anger and like resent.
How did that kill the guy? That's what we're trying to get at. What do you think he's trying to get at? Yes.
Like his words or something?
Okay, I think we're on to something. What did he do around his friend? If he didn't, I mean his foe, if he didn't tell his foe that he was angry with him, he what?
He lied to him.
Where did he lie in it? Show it. Yes, he did. How did he show the lie, or how did he express the lie?
What do you mean? Like in the poem?
Yes, in the poem. Where does he, well, you got us to that point.
The
Where-
second, the second stanza.
Yes, which part?
And that sun was miles and was soft and secretly wild.
So what's really going on there?
He's like being fake to him.
Yes, fake nice to him. He's smiling around him. He's treating him real nicely. All the while he hates his guts. Again, the question is, what do you think really happened that killed the relationship? Yes,
Maybe he told him how he truly feels about him.
possibly. Or what would be worse than that for the other guy? If the guy didn't come right out and tell him to his face, I don't like the way you treated me. What would be something else that might be even more powerful and more effective if you really wanted to get back at your enemy? What if, have you ever known anybody you thought they liked you? You thought they were a friend? You didn't know they hated your guts. I mean, maybe you weren't big friends, but you didn't know this person, every time you walked by, this person just, you could have knocked your head off because they hate you for some reason. What would that do to you? If it's what if you didn't even know you were their enemy? What would that do to you if every time you're around them, they're as nice as can be, they smile, what if you found out that and it kills the relationship? But why would that kill the relationship? Yes.
Lack of trust.
I mean, to me, that's much more devastating. In fact, we know that from the first stanza. The friend, they're good now because he got it out. But the enemy, he never knew. And all of a sudden, somehow he finds out. I don't know how you would do that. Somebody tells you, but it finally comes out and it just ruins the relationship. Maybe it really devastates the guy. That's, to me, and we kind of skipped ahead. I guess we are already at number 10 and number 9. So we've already done 9 and 10. What would you say, how about it, Claire, what would you say is the theme of the poem?
I kind of thought that the theme of the poem was like, I don't know how to say it, but like the progression of anger and kind of like how it can be misrepresented.
Well, you're also answering number, the number 7. So how does the anger progress? Can you review that?
Well, I said at the beginning, kind of like a thought,
Right?
but then once it's covered up, it's
Right.
not shared, like it keeps on growing and growing until it does actual harm.
Yes, very good. That's the way it's organized. And that's, I think you also talked about what is the theme. It's anger, it's resentment, it's betrayal. These are all themes in the poem. How does the pattern of rhyme and rhythm affect the meaning of the poem? I think this is a very sophisticated thing. This is the hardest question. And I have some answers because I also read their answers. And I like what he said, and I'll share it. But anybody have any suggestion about it? How about Claire? The way the rhythm of, or rhyme of the poem, something you're probably, it's more subconscious, you're not really aware of that it even has those things. It's there, but you don't, at a conscious level, you don't really pay attention. Now you need to start paying attention. What do you think?
Has a nice flow, because they rhyme.
Okay?
And
We could say that about every single poem that has rhyme in it. So that's the problem, it doesn't advance us very, it's true, and sometimes that might be a really good answer. I'm just saying, we got to be aware that we gotta get a little bit deeper in that, and this is the hardest question, so I have sympathy with you, I had to get a little help myself, yes.
It helps amplify the two-facedness of the speaker, because it's really bouncy and light.
Yes.
If you just listen to it without thinking about the words, it's like la 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 la.
Yes.
But it's really, actually really dark and.
That's exactly, and they'll say that, it says that, they also agree with that. Did you follow that? Look at it again. I was angry with my friend, I told my wrath, and my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe, I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears, and sunned it with smiles, and with soft deceitful wiles, and so forth. So it has this kind of nursery rhyme, childlike rhythm to it, that's disguising, which is what he's doing, this dark story. And no one's mentioned the darkest part of it all. What is the darkest? Not the fact that he didn't tell the person, that he was deceitful it's not just the fact that he didn't tell him. It's not just the fact that he was deceitful, that he nurtured this anger toward his friend. What's the darkest part of the story? Look at it real carefully. Look at the very last stanza, yes.
well, he says that he's glad.
Did you miss the word glad? He has no sympathy. Even when this guy is dead, whatever that means. He is happy as a lark. That's the darkest part of it, and it's all hidden behind this, like you said, this really childlike rhythm, that flow you're talking about. See, now that makes sense. That rhythm and that flow is there to disguise the darkness of it. What do you think? I like it, but it scares me. Because, have I done this? Am I doing this right now? And I hate somebody. Remember, you're never supposed to say the lesson of this poem is. They won't like that. Great poetry doesn't have lessons. Like that poem can be summed up with one simple thing. But I do get some things out of it. Anybody have a response to this poem? That's my response. Man, am I doing this? Am I hiding? Isn't it better to just tell somebody outright? Listen, you really hurt my feelings. I didn't like that at all. Isn't it better to do that like day one instead of day 100? By day 100, it's too late probably. That's what I got out of it. Anybody have, how'd you respond, Eloise?
It's not good to hide your feelings because it was kind of growing and so kind of came to a point where it exploded. He was glad that something happened to his friend.
Did you feel anything when you read the poem?
It's
I mean, that's what it means. Now you understand, but did it make any impact when you read it? That would be what they're asking. What kind of impact did it have at the end of the poem? Anyway, good job. That's and all these answers are in the back. We're going to do one either tomorrow or on Wednesday or Thursday. So just keep holding on to this book. In the last little bit that we have, I have something I want to give you, and I need to go down there and get it. But I want you to make sure you understand what we're doing for tomorrow and Wednesday. Let me run down there. I'm going to give you a sheet like this, and I've got a few notes I need to give you. So just bear with me.
For real. That would be so helpful.
So what? Yeah.
honestly probably would if somebody.
What's it? The math thing? Oh, it's just the whole.
Actually, I'm talking to my
Dr. Sauer.
He doesn't seem like a big food guy.
Oh no, you just color it and then like you check black box and you have labels. Yeah, just check black box.
Grab one of these and pass it back. One of the questions that we've got to address eventually, I usually do it real early in the year, and that's the idea of diction. They're going to ask you about diction. They did it on this poem here. They didn't use the word diction, I don't think. They said language. And so I found this to be very helpful. This handout deals with, I need to clean up my board, sorry. That was pretty sloppy, but the word lead. Would you write this down at the top of that? It's an acronym. There are periods between each one. So, LEAD. First of all, diction is word choice. And so, word choice and syntax, which is sentence structure, you can't have one without the other. All right? You got the building blocks of the words. The final product is the syntax. So they go hand in hand. So LEAD, lead, the L stands for low diction. The E stands for elevated diction. These are things to look for when we're looking at the diction. The A stands for abstract and its opposite, concrete. And the D stands for denotation, and it's not really the opposite, but I think of it in terms of that, connotation. All right, so if you have those words in your head, you have a starting point about diction. All right, so I need for you to highlight some things. So once you've written that down,
Do not. I would reach my peak. I just get a little less. I know.
all right, so here's what I want you to highlight. All forms of literature, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, drama, authors choose particular words to convey effect and meaning to the reader. Writers employ diction or word choice to communicate ideas and impressions, to evoke emotions, to convey their views of truth to the reader. I think I've heard that English language has more words in it than any other language. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly has a lot. You think, well, why do we need so many words? And that's the beauty of it, because you have maybe 10 or 12 choices for one idea. And yet, the choice of any of those 10 words matters. It might be because it rhymes. It might be because of the rhythm of the word. It might be because the word conveys a certain feeling. That would be connotation that you're trying to evoke in the reader. So, and always the thing, you're always looking for patterns. So when we say, you talk about the diction, this is the pattern. There seems to be a pattern of low diction here. There seems to be a pattern of elevated diction. Maybe they like to use the concrete as opposed to the abstract, and then so forth. So you're looking for these things. All right, levels of diction. High or formal diction contains language that creates an elevated tone. It is free of these things, highlight it, slang, idioms, colloquialisms, and contractions. You know what slang is. Slang is anything that you might put on Facebook or whatever you use. Idioms are kind of the same thing. Idioms don't make sense literally. They're and I can't even think of one at the moment. I'll get you a list. But idioms are things that we use. And cliches, you can throw that in there. But, like somebody used the terms at the end of the day. That's a cliche. We want to try to avoid any group of words that come into our head. Like you're writing and you think of about 4 words that kind of come all together. Every time you think of it, all 4 words come in the same order. That's probably a cliche, and you want to avoid that. Colloquialisms are the way people talk. Regular and contractions. Did you know that when you write essays for AP or any other class, you're not supposed to use contractions. So don't say can't, say cannot. Don't say don't, say do not. Saying can't and don't and all that tells the reader, your college application, for instance, that you are a very informal person and maybe they're looking for more formality. There are times when you want to be very formal. All right, the following passage from Nathaniel Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter uses formal diction. All right, so I have a little assignment, which we have just enough time to do. I want you to read this little paragraph. I had to go run it off again because you could hardly read it. I can read it. I hope you can. I want you to read it, and there's several things I want you to do. First, I want you to highlight every multisyllabic word that you find, like multi-syllable. Now, prepared has a multi-syllable word. Maybe if you want to just save a little time, pick the fancier words. So there are fancy, elegant words, multisyllabic words that may just pop out. Underline those. Just notice how many of those kinds of words Hawthorne uses. Also, I want you to count all the words in this passage. And then thirdly, I guess this would be third or fourth, I want you to count the number of sentences. That's easy. So count the number of words, count the number of sentences, highlight multisyllabic words, and especially, and it might not be multisyllabic, it might be just a fancy word that's one syllable, but it's not a word most people would use today. See what you come up with. You're analyzing the diction in this piece. Literally count every word in it. See what you come up with. Now you wouldn't have time to probably do that. You really wouldn't. You'd maybe it would become more just a natural thing. You just look at it and suddenly you see these. The number of words wouldn't be something you would probably ever need to do, but in this case, it's going to prove a point. We're going to read another one here. in comparison. So, how about the words that are multisyllabic or fancy words? Daniel, what about you? What did you notice?
You want me to like say the words?
Yeah, I'll just the ones that you picked up.
I said impracticable, continual, ignomous, and, scarlet.
All right. How about May? Other fancy words in there?
I said.
Fancy words, yeah.
Ignominious.
Yeah, ignominious. Right. How about any others we've left out that stand out to you? What about the word hue? What would we say? Color. It's a shorter word than color, but it's a fancier word. Discerning, that didn't strike you? That's not a word that people today would use. I like it, but we don't really. You culprit? What would we say instead of culprit? The guilty party, the bad guy, whatever. Even clergyman. What's a clergyman? Do you call your pastor a clergyman? You call him a pastor, a preacher. Multitude, discourse. Discourse is a speech. Multitude means a lot. And even it assumed new terrorists. That's a word we probably wouldn't use. How many words did you find in it, Olivia?
I found about 5. Oh, all together?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant the bad words, or the big words. I
He-
think about 20, 30 something.
How many did you find?
You can't count.
Nobody counted them?
85.
85 words here.
I got 86.
In the first paragraph? You wanna go back to the first
All right, how many sentences? Kylie, how many sentences?
Olivia, take this stuff and go back.
There are 2 sentences for 85 words. That makes, and I counted these two, 40 and 45. That's a pretty long sentence, 40 words, 45 words. That's a part of his syntax, his style of writing, his word choice. All right, look at the next one. This one is called neutral diction. Neutral diction is more like standard with fewer of those other things. I want you to read it, and I want you to count the words, all the words.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the big words, like the ones that we underlined.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Where did 25 come from?
25
Alright.
big words I found.
Oh.
Good job, Olivia.
You wanna list them all?
Let's praise her when we can. That's very good.
Verification is very
Well, if you combine the 2 paragraphs, but there's less for the first.
All right, count, look at the next paragraph, read it, and count the number of words. And then count the number of sentences. And as you're reading it, notice how many of those big words that you found before. You see any of those like that? See how many big words that you have, fancy words. We got about a minute left. See what you can do. Before you walk out of here, I want us to answer that question for that how many words were there?
I guess 96.
So about 117 words. How many sentences were there? Listen to the number of words in each sentence. 29, 22, 15, 29, 29, and 17. So you see the length of the sentences are different. This is called neutral diction. I didn't see any fancy words. None of those big words. So those are the language. That's the language, part of the language you can use to talk about diction and syntax. Study and then bring this back. Well, there's not much more, but there's some more interesting things here we want to look at. So we'll see you tomorrow. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, see ya.